All right, good afternoon and welcome to the Patriotic Dragon Radio Show. I'm really want to welcome everybody back. The Patriotic Dragon Radio program is a show to bring open, honest, thoughtful conversation back, allowing individuals and groups to be a part of a better, brighter future. As always, the views expressed on the program are not necessarily those of the guests, WYYZ, Pickens GOP, or the sponsor. This month, the sponsor is the Pickens County GOP. The Republican Party is here to support all candidates in their primary bid and to support the general election candidate in local, state, and national elections. Please look for us at our new website, Pickens GOP, to get information and get involved. I want to start the show with some information we just received earlier this afternoon. David Leister of Nelson informed us of the passing of Francis Carney, a longtime icon in the Nelson and Pickens County area. Our thoughts and prayers go out to the family. Our guests this week are Jennifer Edwards Jordan, running for the Clerk of Court. Jennifer, good to have you on.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
All right. And Meg Norris with the organization United Opt Out, working to help students and parents in the issue of Common Core and the testing being required here in Georgia and other states. So, topics we really want to talk about. First, Jennifer, I know the listeners would like to know more about what made you decide to enter the race.
Well, as a lifelong resident of Pickens County here in Georgia, I have a strong passion for the history and preservation of the records. It really isn't about the money for me. I just want to make sure in the next generation, another 20-year-old girl will have the opportunity, like I did, to get lost in the past, in her downtime, of course, in the record room.
That's interesting.
And also, I do love the court setting. I'm not going to lie. It just kind of clicks for me.
Yeah, I think it's something, if you enjoy the judiciary side of it and understand it, which is something,
I love it.
Something as well. All right. So give us a little about your work background and your other experience in the field.
Well, I began working in the Pickens County Clerk of Court's office 20 years ago.
When you were 12?
Yeah, 12. More like 20 years old. I had went to the Appalachian, well, actually it was Pickens Tech at that time, now known as the Chattahoochee Technical College. And I had decided that I was going to go on and get my degree at Reinhardt, and I got the opportunity. A friend of mine told me about the job at the Clerk of Court's office, and so I applied and got it, and I just stayed. So I've been there for 20 years. 10 of those years, actually 8 of the years, I was just a regular deputy clerk, and I worked in the criminal division. Juvenile court was my main thing. Okay. And then the county was so small that I also worked in the deeds. So I had a lot of downtime, so I could go play in the record room and see all the old stuff. But now, in the past 11 years, I have been the chief deputy clerk, and now into the 12th year. So I'm over all areas of the clerk of court's office under the clerk herself.
Okay, so. All right. Okay, good. And as far as from the criminal court standpoint, and as I started doing some more research on the clerk of court position, and as you and I discussed before the show, I really didn't realize the spectrum of what the clerk of court is responsible for. Can you kind of start from the basic to kind of I wouldn't say far-fetched, but the expansion of what you're responsible for?
We have all of the criminal records, not all the criminal records in the state of Georgia, just for the county. We have all of the civil records, meaning divorces, lawsuits, land boundary disputes. We also do all the deeds, land plat recordings. So if you own property in Pickens County, it is somewhere in our office. We also do juvenile court records, adoptions, trade names, any kind of DBAs, DD 214s are also in our office. Basically, most all of the county's records are in our office, except for marriage. There's a few marriage and death records, but the biggest part of the records in your county are here in our, well, not here, in the clerk of court's office.
Right.
So
Okay.
it's a big responsibility. Lots of
Absolutely.
people don't really realize how large it is.
Right. And then you're responsible for coordinating, say, if a transaction, a real estate transaction happens in Albany, the attorneys that would be handling that, they would contact, and you're responsible for communicating documents and that type of thing back to that. To
sorry?
another, say there's a real estate transaction going to occur, and it was being handled by an attorney in Macon or
Oh, yes.
or somewhere else. You handle all of that
They would send all the documentation up to us to record.
to record.
And as soon as we got a pretty good turnaround time. Our girls are good, but it immediately goes back to either that attorney or to the person that asked for it to be returned to them in the county.
Okay. Yeah, and I was actually talking to a friend of mine who was an attorney and was explaining to me that, say, a person owned property in Pickens County and then had moved away to another county, and then at their demise, the settlement of the estates and that type of thing.
Now, estates are handled in probate.
Okay. All right. But then how are those records? He was saying that he deals with clerk of court across the southeast as far as finalizing the properties and
Yes.
that type of thing.
Once everything is, all divided up between families and all that stuff, after the will has been probated, it is then, the deeds are drawn up by the attorney and come to our office.
Okay,
to
yeah.
re-record.
So
And
you
put it,
re-record, okay.
Right, we re-record out of one name and put it into another.
Okay, so yeah, you are responsible for all those
Yes.
transactions as well. So if somebody believes there's property owned by a family member and they live in another state, they would contact your office to do the investigation and research.
We can't do the research for them. That is one thing, that's why there's attorneys that do those searches for them. Of
Okay.
course we can assist them and, just kind of say,
Put them in the right book.
Put them in the right area.
Yeah, the big
Yes.
dusty book.
Yes. The ones I kind of like.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
We'll put them in the right direction. But as far as doing a search for them, yeah, the law don't like us to do that in depth.
All right. Well, in kind of along that same line of stuff, with the election season, upon us, what are some of the changes you feel are most needed in the clerk of court position and in your department?
Well, I personally think that the record room needs a revamp.
Okay.
It's the records are, like I say, they're used a lot. Of course, our recent records are, backed up, double backed up, things of that nature. But the older things, like our older plats, other than being on microfilm and having another area off-site, there's nothing else other than that original copy. And that worries me, and they're used a lot. So, use that regular book and pull it out and you flip pages. The wear is beginning to wear on this stuff.
Okay.
So I would like to see them digitized and, redone if possible. At least rebinding of the books that are really getting worn. That's something, of course, I've worked on grants for that, and at this time, with the economy the way it is, it's hard to find a grant for it, but, that's something I really want to get done. That is definite. And then I also want to go ahead and start a new, kind of overhaul the accounting system. Like I say, I want to make sure the taxpayers' money is taken care of and secure, of course, but I want to make sure our girls are covered too, to make sure, nothing looks any way out of the way. I want to make sure, we're covered, they're covered, and so there's no, I just want to make sure, the money's put where it needs to be.
Sure, and easily trackable.
Yes, easily tracked. That way there's no question if anything ever comes up.
Right. On those, the what I would call historical or the older documents, is that something that has been discussed in previous years to be done, or is it just we've kind of been status quo and
It's
just
kind of been status quo.
Okay.
It really has. Like I say, when I first came to work there, everything was microfilmed. And so that was just the big thing, was the microfilm. So now, we're, of course, the clerk has moved in a way to, she's got, along with, the times, she's moved it that way. But as far as the older records, the newer records, is right where they need to be. But the older ones, we need to start from the front and work our way up to where we need to be now.
Okay.
That's just my opinion, because those are the ones that are getting the most wore down.
Right. Percentage-wise, how much of our records are we talking about that?
I'm gonna say a good third.
Okay.
You know, and some of the stuff has been archived down, in the state archives.
Oh, okay.
But there is a good bit that's not. So in case of
Any issues?
anything, a fire, something, there's going to be a few records that's gone. And that has always bothered me.
Sure.
But there's no place that I've never been in the position where I can step up and make that argument,
Sure.
And now I want to be.
Absolutely. Yeah, because I know from a historical standpoint that the records, and if any of the listeners haven't had the opportunity, take your family and go to the state archives.
Oh, yes.
If you have a child who's in history or has a love of it, I don't think there's any place other than the Smithsonian that you can see as much history as you can in our state archives.
That's right.
They are impressive. Yeah, great. Well, planning along that same thing, planning along for 2016 and beyond, what are some of the items that you would put in place to assure the citizens' information is secure? And the reason I ask that is obviously not data breach necessarily, but we've had in the Secretary of State's office some things got out and were obviously recovered fully and that type of thing. But what would you see that we would be the direction to go?
With the law's changing, and with the new world as it is now, we kind of changed with it. No Social Security numbers. We don't have anything like that with us any longer. Basically, the only thing that I can think of off the top of my head that could ever be breached would be a juvenile or an adoption type record, but those are under lock and key 24 hours a day with a key card and a key. And they have to go through me, because they got to go through my office to get to them.
Okay.
So, that would be the only thing. Because, years ago, it was protocol to put a Social Security number on a warranty deed when they come to record it.
Wow.
So that's something we've had to go back and take a Sharpie and just kind of, you just can't do that any longer, because it's just not in this day and time.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything that has we don't. Everything's locked up tight at night under lock and key.
Yeah. So all that Social Security information been redacted off all the records.
Yes.
Right.
Way back. We did that, several years ago.
That's good. Well, also, how can interested citizens support you, and how do they get in touch with your campaign?
Well, I know a lot of people in the county, but I'd really like to know a lot more. Mainly if they would just vote on May 24th for me and pass the word. That's all I really need.
Okay.
I'm good.
Do we have a Facebook that we can send them to?
Facebook's the thing.
Okay.
You can always visit my website, or my Facebook, I'm sorry. It's Jennifer Edwards Jordan. You can always look me up and add me as a friend anytime. I can be reached at 678-948-6833. That's my phone number. Unless I'm in court, you can get me.
Okay.
I'm in there a good bit. Good. And if anybody wants to donate, it's P.O. Box 2366, Jasper, Georgia 30143.
Okay. Give me that again. So
Sure.
Put it to Jennifer Jordan for Clerk.
Jennifer Jordan for Clerk.
Or for Clerk. Okay.
At P.O. Box 2366, Jasper, Georgia 30143.
All right. Okay. I'm just writing it down so we can turn around and put it out there on it for Clerk. So, okay. All right. And anything that you've got currently planned? I know we're at the very first stages of it, and I want to thank you for being on the show and
I enjoyed it.
to get your candidacy out there. We're looking forward to supporting you.
Thank you.
And as we discussed, we'll definitely plan a meet and greet
yeah.
here on one of the future shows, and have it here at Rocco's Pub and Grill on 515 for the citizens of this end of the county, and we'll work on one on the west end and one on the east side.
And I'm a talker, if you hadn't noticed, so I'm all about it.
All right, Jennifer.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you for being on.
All
right. All right, and now with us is Meg Norris with the United Opt-Out organization. Meg, thank you for being on the radio show with us.
Thanks so much for having me.
What I'd like for you to do would be tell us about, not just about Senate Bill 355, but the reasons that you have invested your personal time and a tremendous amount of effort in this regard.
I was a public school teacher here in Georgia. Still am, unless, of course, they've pulled my certificate and I don't know about it, which is possible. And when Common Core came into the classroom, I happened to be studying, or had just finished studying as part of my dissertation, neurocognitive sciences. And I began to see behaviors in my students that were aligned with high-stress situations. When children get into a high-stress situation, they have difficulty expressing their frustration, and so they generally act out. And the way this stress manifests itself is different than how adults would deal with it. They end up self-cutting. They end up pulling out their eyelashes, chewing on their fingers, stabbing themselves in the leg, and I began to see an uncomfortable increase in these types of behaviors. A lot of people write them off as just kids or teenagers or whatever, or just a phase, but it really began to concern me. I ended up leaving the classroom in order to fight against what was happening in our schools across the country. From there, I began working with a number of legislators. I also began a couple of different groups here in Georgia, Georgians to Stop Common Core, as well as Opt Out Georgia. And we have been fighting for the last 3 years to stop what's happening in the schools. And it has been a very difficult, a very time-consuming battle. I did it full-time for 3 years, and just this last fall I have gone back into the classroom just because I missed it so terribly much. So I am back to teaching again, which I love. And but we're still fighting, and we have the Opt Out Georgia group is about 3,600 strong, and we help parents exercise their parental rights to stand up and say no to the toxic testing that's happening in our classrooms.
Okay. Well, I know that we had met, I think a couple of years ago now in Athens at the state convention over there, and I got a little bit of information from your group and was fascinated by the data that you had already compiled at that point. And that standpoint, and just speaking really in Georgia, where do we stand, and what part of the statistics did you use when you were working on the Senate Bill 355 and the other parts of the legislation?
Senate Bill 355 is the Student Teacher Protection Act. It was an effort to not only return the classrooms back to the teachers, but also protect our parents who wanted to refuse for their children, and protect our children who have no business existing in the kinds of stress we're seeing in the classrooms. Stress to a child is 100 times as bad as it is to an adult. An adult says, stress, it's something you have to learn to deal with for the rest of your life. We're talking about toxic levels of stress, levels of stress that are literally physiologically damaging the brains of our kids. And that was my concern. That's what I was seeing in the classroom, and that's what we continue to see. We're seeing second graders being put on antidepressants. We're seeing, I had a mom come to me, her fifth grader was eating the soap in her bathroom to try and make herself sick so she didn't have to go to school. Excuse me. And we decided that we needed to put something out. I'm just a teacher. I joined up with a mom out of Gwinnett County, and the two of us approached one of the senators who had tried to pass a bill 2 years ago stopping Common Core. And the three of us together wrote Senate Bill 355 as an attempt to try and at least slow down the testing that's happening in our classrooms, and also to try and protect our teachers. Right now, our teachers have 2 years to get high scores on these tests, or they can have their certificate pulled. And last year counted as the first year, so a lot of our teachers are halfway to losing their jobs on a test that has never been proven as valid or reliable. So this bill demanded that any tests being used in a high stakes way, in other words, any test that's attached to someone's job, that's attached to promotion within the school, to grade level promotion against the students, any test that's used for that has to be valid and reliable, and it has to be established that way by a third-party psychometric company. I can't imagine walking into a doctor's office and having my temperature checked with a thermometer that's never been calibrated. And that's generally what we're doing here. We are measuring teachers on something that isn't even accurate. And then the sad thing about it, in this bill, right now our teachers are being judged, their evaluations are 50% based on student test scores. We asked for that to be lowered to 10%, and here's why. Research shows that on any given test, the influence of the teacher, as far as the test outcome goes, ranges between 7 and 14%. So 7 to 14% of that test outcome can be blamed on the teacher.
Yeah, that's...
And the rest is outside influence. It's, home life, it's, exposure to the subject, it's exposure, it's background information. There's so many outside variables that when you attach 50%, it really is a blatant effort to get rid of our teachers, which probably time for a different discussion, but I believe that that's the plan down the road as it is.
Yeah. Well, and I know as I started doing some research on this before the show and spoke with some of the teachers that I know, not so much locally, but in some of the other metro Atlanta counties, and one young teacher literally graduated last May and had done her internship and did a good enough job that the Cobb County system hired her. She's forced into an elementary school environment, and this year made to work on this program and be judged on that in order to get her tenure to be able to keep her job. And she, after graduating in May, they didn't cover any of this for the past 4 years in the college environment in early childhood development. But yet her career is going to be judged on those arbitrary standards. So,
well, and nothing happening in the schools today is based in child development. I mean, that's the sad thing. It's almost as if educational research and child development research exists completely separately from what is happening in education. There's there's no connection between the two, and that's extremely sad. One of the other things that we are working on as a group is Parents' Rights Act. We want to make sure that parents have the right in Georgia, as they are now allowed by federal law. The Every Student Succeeds Act gives parents the right to what they say opt out, to refuse the tests. Georgia does not have that in law, so we are trying to have that added to the law in Georgia, so that parents feel more comfortable with saying no, and schools are less likely to bully parents when they ask to do that.
Right. Yeah, and so from that, I know you've this week has, I'm sure, based on our conversation earlier, it's been a whirlwind, and I know you've invested the whole week there at the state capitol and working through this. Can you kind of give people who've been doing other things all week and watched American Idol or their favorite TV show, what your week has been like down there in Atlanta?
It's if you've never been down to the Capitol and seen the process firsthand, it is it's gut wrenching. It's gut wrenching. I mean, I wish there was another word for it. I wish that watching our government processes would be inspiring, but it's not. It really isn't. It's been heartbreaking to see how little concern there has been for our children, how little concern there has been for our teachers. We will continue to try. We will do this again next session, and eventually, hopefully, something will break. I think we need to, as a state, begin to focus on voting in people who are supportive of public education, because we do not have that now. We have a system down here that puts way too much power in the hands of the governor and not enough in the hands of the legislators. The legislators have been incredibly supportive, and those that aren't afraid to stand up for what's right have been incredibly supportive. Those who are afraid of the governor continue to do what the governor asks them to do. I am also working with concerned black clergy who are working very diligently to stop the Opportunity School District. I'm just drawing a blank. Opportunity School District that Governor Deal has put forth, as well as the Atlanta Public School System, which has now privatized 26 of its schools after bringing in their new superintendent. So the black clergy is very, very upset, is working very hard to stop what's happening in the lower income schools, as most of these schools are. And so I'm working with them as well to try and make some changes, whether it be electing the right people onto the school boards, electing the right representatives. We're gonna see some changes, I think, come this November.
Yeah, well, it's, I think, and I know we have some elected officials who do listen to the program, and then sometimes view it on the YouTube version afterwards. And my feeling is that those changes have to start at the bottom and go through the entire system. So for listeners, as I put out on Facebook this morning, you need to understand and look at the candidates who are running for your local school board as well as the state, and question them and understand what they believe in and what their plan is for our children, which are our future, and drill down into that.
Absolutely.
And I think in every county there's elections for the Board of Education positions up this year, and I think it's critical, because whether it's the local school board, as I've done more research into it, it's very similar at the local level, where the local superintendent is all powerful, and teachers and administrators at the individual schools have very little to say about the procedures and what they're asked to do on a daily basis. And that's wrong, because if you trust somebody to be a teacher of 25 to 50 children, or an administrator to be over all the teachers and students in a given school, then you definitely should trust their opinion and give them the opportunity to have some input into it, instead of being written up that they're not allowed to discuss issues in their school. That when I started looking
and that's one of the reasons. That's one of the reasons I left. I was told I wasn't allowed to speak out. I was told I wasn't allowed to talk to parents. I had parents that were having concerns, and I was not allowed to engage with them. And I think, the teachers of the state of Georgia are starting to gain a voice. This is a right-to-work state, so they don't have the kinds of protections that teachers in other states have where there's a union. New York has seen, the state of New York last year had nearly 250,000 kids refuse the tests. They had so many kids refuse that the tests were thrown out. They were considered statistically insignificant, and they were not used against teachers or the schools, which is the whole point of opting out. And New York was able to do it last year. So I hope that more and more parents, as they become disgusted with the testing and the constant test prep their kids are going through, will stand up and say, look, this isn't learning, this isn't teaching, this isn't what our democracy needs. We need what our republic needs. We need a well-rounded traditional education for our kids, and that's what the people that are passing these laws. Their kids are not in public school. I promise you, they're all in private school, and they're getting the traditional education that you and I had. We were able to get in a public institution way back when. Not that we're old, but it's frustrating to me that our teachers can't speak out, and because we'll never know what works in a classroom if the teachers can't. Even our school boards in the state of Georgia have been gagged. They're not allowed to speak out against anything that the school board is doing. There's actually a gag order if you work on a school board. So, it's frustrating not to be able to have an open discourse about what is working in our classrooms and what isn't. And even then, is it an honest discourse? And I'm hoping that we're working towards that. It's very, very difficult to maneuver the political landscape at the Capitol. Very, very difficult. I mean, the mom that I wrote this bill with, she and I walked in. When we dropped the bill, it sent shockwaves. Nobody knew it was being written, obviously, because we're not lobbyists. Nobody knew it was being written. Nobody knew what was happening. And the funny thing is our bill was then given to the Senate Education Committee chairman, who who used parts of it in his bill, which is nice. I was actually honored to know that pieces of it were stolen, but it's like walking through a minefield and never knowing whose agenda is being forwarded in any given situation. Right. We came down here to protect the kids and to protect the parents and protect the teachers, and that was our only agenda. It wasn't important enough, apparently, to those in power. Watching the lobbyists jump from side to side and side to side, and just depending on, it's almost as it's like being in an elementary school playground where certain kids can only play in certain sandboxes.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
And it's frustrating, but this is how it's done.
Right.
And we learned a lot this year. I was down here 2 years ago for Senate Bill 167. I wasn't as involved, obviously, but each time I learn a little more. And we're not giving up. I mean, we still have our Parents' Rights Act that's going to be introduced. but it's I don't want to say it's disheartening, because it's the way it is. It's the way it is, and I hate that saying, but we can't change the process. So we have to continue to fight, and we have to continue to be above the political fray.
Right. Yeah, and
that's what we're going to do.
Absolutely, and then that's, I think, based on the same thing as I've started delving into it that much more, the learning, somewhat like your analogy as far as the grammar school playground. You learn from each experience, and you learn which kids you want to play with, which ones are actually open to trying to learn something new, and that's where you invest your time.
Yeah.
And to educate them, those friends, and if they believe in the same thing you do, then they'll help move it forward. And it is. Yeah, and I know we discussed this before, and I've talked to several junior legislators who've gone down there to the Gold Dome and really had their eyes opened as to what the process is and how things languish when they should move forward quickly, and just process. And once an agenda to a certain degree is set, which I think is what the governor had in mind this year, and who's not going to let it vary from it. But
very much so.
Yeah, but the Speaker of the House is here in our area in North Georgia, and we're looking forward to having Speaker Ralston on the show after the session is over with. And
terrific.
These will be questions that will definitely be in that discussion, along with a lot of other legislation that is important not just to North Georgia, but to the entire state of Georgia and our future. So, in that same research, and I believe it's better for us to let our listeners hear something, not necessarily our opinion, but if they can Google the favorite song they had in high school and get it in 2 minutes on their phone. There's a group that I really have done a lot of reading on, and started backtracking, and it's always that analogy of follow the money. The group ALEC, and
oh yeah.
If you would just tell a little bit about that organization, and then I would really like for the listeners to, go out there, Google it, look up at the ALEC, and just read about it. And on that website, what I was impressed with is you can actually click on the legislators in your state who are members of this organization. And it's very telling, I think, if you look at those names and then you look at the legislation that those people's names appear on at the state as well. I think it kind of tells the tale of where their philosophy and where their efforts are. So,
absolutely, ALEC really not only is an organization with legislators, but it is an organization of business leaders, and it's almost a round table where the two of them come together. The business leaders explain what it is they want to see happen in legislation that would help them grow their businesses or make money, and in exchange, the legislators make sure that legislation gets written and gets dropped onto the floor. And of course, there's campaign donations that are exchanged, and oftentimes they will write legislation as a group in order to drop the same legislation in multiple states. Oftentimes you can see legislation, especially in education, that is almost identical from state to state, and it raises we have an ALEC flag. Oop, that's an ALEC bill. We know that ALEC wrote that one, which means, again, you follow the money. And I think that's true really with any legislation today. As long as there's this much money in politics, you really have to follow the money to see what the true agenda behind each piece of legislation is. What is the purpose of this piece of legislation truly, and who's benefiting from it? I encourage you to look and see where your legislators are getting their money from. Followthemoney.org or .com?
.org. .org.
It's a great website. You can do it even on the state ethics website. You can look up and see who is donating to your legislators. Now, I will warn you that oftentimes companies will come in and make a large donation to one legislator, and that legislator then will split it up and pass it out to certain other legislators in the assembly. So sometimes there's a trail that you have to kind of dig through and be aware of that web. But it's very eye-opening, and you really can see why certain legislators are dropping certain pieces of legislation.
Yeah. Well, and along that same line, for the listeners, you want to do some research and see the results of that type of legislation, the charter schools and the different situations. Go and look at the last 10 years in Louisiana, and look at how those school systems, from the parochial schools and the public school sector, what's evolved there over the last 10 years, and it paints a much clearer picture of how the wheels can really come off the wagon and how.
Well, and the sad thing there is this Opportunity School District that Deal has set up that actually will be on the ballot in November as an amendment. The Opportunity School District is set up to mirror New Orleans. I'm not really sure why you would set something up mirroring New Orleans, considering the disaster that it has been. This type of school district has been tried not only in New Orleans, but in Memphis and in Oklahoma and Chicago, and none of them have worked. They have all been historic failures. And last year's graduating class from the New Orleans school system had a 12% admissions rate to college. So that gives you some idea of what we're up against. The privatization of our school systems is the ultimate goal here. They want to be able to get out of the business of educating. They want to hand it over to private companies who will not have our children's best interests in mind, and it'll be a moneymaker for them. And when you start looking at how these schools work, the most money can be made in a school where children are failing. So there is very little incentive to help the children succeed. In a lot of these schools, you can see that it's happened in the charter systems up in New York as well. In a lot of these charters, you end up seeing things like sports and clubs and the library begin to disappear because they are expensive. And when you're trying to make money, you take out what's not putting money back in the school. They also have a tendency to push out kids who do not help their bottom line as far as test scores go. So our kids are being turned into widgets, basically. There's a reason that when you buy a McDonald's hamburger in Atlanta, it tastes the same as the McDonald's hamburger you bought in Spokane, Washington. They're standardized. Right. They have the exact same ingredients, and they are made the exact same way. Unfortunately, you cannot control the ingredients when it comes to school. You have children from all different walks of life, and we are charged with teaching them all. And the system that they are putting in place does not. And we are approaching a real crisis, and it's worrisome. I think we're going to see really the end of public education as we knew it as kids. Education is becoming a workforce training program.
Yeah, and there's a place for that workforce training for students that are not following academia, but I know all the statistics for years have shown that those activities that you discuss, including music programs and that type of thing that have been constantly attacked as from a budgetary standpoint, those are what rounds out a student, and academically the students who are involved in those things achieve much higher levels in their university and college careers, and even in technical fields. So yeah, those are important
Absolutely.
things, and I look forward to having you back on the show, and I'd like to really delve more into it and into the bills once the session's over with, and especially with that Opportunity School Districts being on the ballot in November to educate citizens so they know how to look at that bill and analyze the benefits, features, or the negatives of it when they go to the polls. This year, in a lot of aspects, is probably, you always hear it, but it's probably one of, if not the most important election in our lifetime.
Absolutely.
For the direction of the
Absolutely.
country and our state. So,
Well, I look forward to being back. I appreciate that.
all right, Meg. Thank you for all the work and the time away from family, and actually having a week off to go and work hard at the state, not as a lobbyist, but as a concerned parent and a citizen for the rights of our students, our parents, and our teachers.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
I appreciate it.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. And we're fortunate to have a special guest with us, Mindy Chester with Girl Scout Troop 9042 from here in beautiful Jasper. Mindy, thank you for being on with us.
Thank you for having us.
All right. I know it's a special time of the year, and I had dessert last night with my lemon cookies. So I'd like for you to tell a little bit about what we got going on here locally with the Girl Scout Troop.
Sure. So it's that time of year again. Girl Scout season is in full force, and we are Troop 9042. Our girls are 7th graders, and they've been together since kindergarten doing this. So they're excited. It's cookie season again, and that's where they make most of their money so that they can give back to the community, as well as do special things with the troop.
Okay. And as far as the where parents like myself can which I was fortunate. I know your lovely daughter Annabelle, who's an exceptional young lady as well as a Girl Scout. So I've got the inside track. But for those parents and people who don't have an inside track, where can they get cookies here in Pickens County?
So we are going to be at Kroger this Sunday from 4 to 8, but all throughout Pickens, there are going to be different troops at Kroger and at Walmart on Tuesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays.
All right, so plenty of opportunity. And what time of the day will the young ladies be out there?
Sure. So for the most part on the weekends, it's either 12 to 4 or 4 to 8. It just depends on different shifts. And then during the week, it's typically 4 to 8.
4 to 8. So when we're doing our afternoon shopping there at Kroger's or at Walmart, you're going by to get that milk and bread for school lunches, you can pick up some boxes of the different cookies. And what varieties do we have available this year?
So this year we have our Thin Mints, the Samoas, Tagalongs, Trefoils, Do-si-dos, Savannah Smiles, Rah Rah Raisins, and our Toffee-tastics. And the Toffee-tastics are our gluten-free cookie. They're all $4 except the Toffee-tastics, which are $6.
All right, so you got something for everybody. So for those unfortunate people who are allergic to peanut butter, we've got a selection of cookies there and they're all boxed individually and everything, so there's no issues there. And for those of us who have become gluten issue or trying to eliminate it from the diet, we still got the ability to have a treat that we can all enjoy. So.
Absolutely. And we always tell the people, too, who are dieting, because I know it's that time of year, everybody's trying to get in a little bit better shape and do a little better. We also take boxes for donations for the military as well, and we'll send them overseas and locally here in Georgia to the military. So that's an option there as well.
Well, now that is an excellent option I wasn't aware of, and that's for those of us who've spent time away from home when a special K-bar or a pack of chewing gum from home was a great thing when you open up the box of things coming from home. Girl Scout cookies from your local troop would definitely be a nice add into that box for a soldier who's deployed or stationed somewhere that they don't have access to them. So that's a great program. The troop itself and the Girl Scouts here in North Georgia, what do we got? What else do we have coming up with the spring? I know there's a jamboree type things. What events do we have coming up between now and, say, the end of school?
We've got different events that they do, and a lot of times you'll see them down there at Lee Newton Park. The Girl Scout community here locally does clean up at the park monthly. I think a lot of people don't realize that, but every troop donates their time to go down there and help clean up the park. We do have the jamborees coming up, and I'm trying to think what else we have coming. Our troop's actually doing a Girl Scout camp this weekend to learn more about how to build better relationships and maintain long-term friendships, which I think is something great for the girls these days.
Absolutely. And for parents or young ladies who are interested in getting more information on our local Girl Scout troops, what's the best way for them to get in touch with the troops?
So there's a couple different ways. Probably the easiest way is to go to Girl Scouts of Atlanta. We're kind of a smaller division of that larger group, and they'll put you in touch with the best troop based on your daughter's age.
Oh, okay. All right. And locally, where do the young ladies meet at? And is it weekly, monthly? How do we do it?
Yeah, and it varies by troop. So each troop, depending on the age and how long they've been together, and really schedules. All the other girls are doing sports and activities and gymnastics in school. So it varies. We do monthly meetings at our troop leader's home. We used to meet at the church, and I know some of the girls still meet at the church groups or even some of the local elementary schools as well.
Okay. All right. Well, that sounds good. Well, again, for all the listeners, please support the Girl Scouts. It's a fantastic organization. We're very fortunate and blessed in West Georgia to have one of the most gorgeous camps that you could ask for there in the North Georgia mountains for kids to go to, and those relationships and the things that are taught in the Girl Scouts carry for a lifetime. And so we appreciate you being on with us, Mindy, and make sure and tell Annabelle I said to keep working hard. You're fortunate to have two great kids, but her especially, So I'm really glad to know her and get to see her as she's growing up. So thank you for all your time as well on it.
Well, thank you. We appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing everybody out there.
All right. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
You too. Thanks. Bye.
So now coming up, we've got the sock hops are coming to town. And so now what's this going to be for?
Yeah, it's a fundraiser that we're doing with Pickens County GOP, and it's for part of the proceeds are going to go to the American Legion Post 149's Operation Comfort Warriors, which is a program they have to provide the essentials that veterans need when they're either transported back and forth to the VA hospital, or just things that aren't part of their benefits that they receive from the VA as it is. And it can be something as simple as magazines, basic toiletries, that type of thing. And anybody that's got a veteran in their family that's that's going back and forth to Decatur or to Chattanooga, to them. There's things that are provided, but there's a lot of things that are just not provided, and it's all about their comfort, and you couldn't really. I don't think there's anything we can do that's more important than supporting our veterans and their welfare. And we've got, what's nice about this is it stays local. It's not money that's being collected here, sent to some other state, and then trickle back down. It's 100% of the proceeds go to the veterans. There's no administrative cost. All the American Legion 149, everybody there is a true volunteer and do it out of the brotherhood of being a veteran and supporting those veterans that are in need. So it's a great cause.
Wow, and it's going to be a lot of fun too.
Absolutely. Yeah, the sock hops, if you haven't heard the group, they're awesome as far as 50s, 60s, 70s style music. You don't have to wear a poodle skirt and bobby socks, but if you want to, that would be cool. We'll have the dance floor set up, have basic wine and beer will be available, along with some finger foods. And Chattahoochee Tech, if you haven't been to it, has a really great facility and good setup. Looking forward to having everybody there. Tickets are available. We have those at the UPS store in Jasper. We also have them available at Rocco's Pub and Grill on 515. And then also if you go to the Pickens GOP website, there's information on there, phone numbers and email to be able to get those tickets. And they will be available at the door that night as
Wow,
well.
so it's a good chance to break out those poodle skirts again and come out for what's a lot of fun and really supporting an amazing cause and get together and just talk to each other and enjoy a night.
Yeah, enjoy a night in beautiful North Georgia. So.
Excellent. So now, where else can you've given a place, is there a number they can call for more information, make sure they don't miss it?
Yeah, they can actually, like I say, they can go onto the website, the Pickens County GOP website, or they can reach me at 770-318-8401. That's my cell phone, or they can text me, and I always have tickets on me and available. So, look forward to everybody coming out for a good cause and a great evening.
Well, perfect.